My name is Emily Calder, and I walked into that ballroom carrying a silver tray of champagne flutes like I didn't once help finance the very company hosting the event. The marble floors gleamed beneath my black flats, and every guest seemed to shimmer under the warm overhead lights. My sister stood near the stage, laughing with a cluster of executives, wearing the kind of dress you only pick out when you know everyone will be watching. I approached her table to deliver drinks, and before I could set a single glass down, Melissa turned, looked me straight in the eye, and said just loud enough for the group to hear, "Wow! Didn't know catering let in amateurs now. Careful not to spill, Em." The others chuckled politely. One woman glanced at me with pity, and one man didn't look at me at all. I didn't say a word. I just smiled, set the glass down, and moved on. But as I turned to make another round, I felt someone watching me. Not in the way people look at a server they forgot they spoke to, but the kind of look that lingers, calculated and precise. He was older, distinguished, standing near the edge of the room with a glass of bourbon in hand. And he wasn't watching my sister. He was watching me. I was 13 when I first learned I wasn't like Melissa. Not just in the obvious ways. She was tall, blonde, and had our father's sharp chin, while I had our mother's quiet eyes and olive-toned skin. But in the way people spoke to her like she was a future someone, and spoke to me like I was. Here by accident. Melissa was my half-sister. Same father, different mothers. Her mother passed when she was young, and mine had been the other woman for a time, until my father finally married her and brought me into his manicured house with the white walls and silver frames full of pictures I wasn't in. He tried to be fair, in his own cold way. Gave me a room, bought me school supplies, remembered birthdays. But Melissa? She never forgot what I was. A symbol of betrayal. An intruder. A girl whose presence reminded everyone that something messy had existed behind the family's pristine reputation. She didn't yell, she didn't bully outright. It was in the way she said, "Oh, that's cute," whenever I tried to explain anything I cared about. Or how she offered to help me buy clothes, only to bring back clearance bin leftovers from stores I'd never heard of. It was always just subtle enough that when I mentioned it to my father, he'd sigh and say, "Emily, don't be so sensitive. Melissa's just trying to include you." But she wasn't. By 16, I stopped trying to explain myself. By 18, I moved out. My mother and I rented a one-bedroom apartment above a laundromat. She was a night shift nurse and slept most of the day. I picked up shifts as a barista in the morning and cleaned office buildings in the evening. We got by. College was never in the cards for me, not right away. I didn't have the grades Melissa had. No one had time to tutor me when Mom was asleep and Dad was too busy running the firm. But I read. A lot. Finance blogs, real estate case studies, investment articles. I read them in between lattes and Lysol wipes. I soaked in every scrap of knowledge I could get my hands on because no one was going to hand me anything. I had to be the one to build it. Then came Mom's diagnosis. Stage 3 pancreatic cancer. I emptied what little savings I had, said yes to every extra shift, took a second job waiting tables at a hotel downtown. I wore heels that blistered my toes and smiled through swollen ankles. Melissa sent flowers once, with a pre-printed card that said, "Thinking of you both." She didn't visit, not once, and I didn't expect her to. After Mom passed, I didn't speak at the funeral. I didn't cry in front of anyone. I went home, opened the last letter Mom had written me, and sat at the kitchen table until dawn, rereading one line. "They never saw your value because they were afraid of it." That was the night I decided I would make something of myself. Not to prove them wrong, but to prove that Mom had been right. After the funeral, I disappeared from their world. I didn't go to family holidays. I didn't answer texts from relatives asking how I was holding up. Melissa got promoted again. I saw it in a press release. Melissa Heller named head of marketing for Westcorp's innovations. I didn't feel jealous. I felt nothing. For the first time, I had no one to prove anything to but myself. And that's when the clarity came. I moved into a small studio with no heating and one stubborn window that never fully closed. It didn't matter. I still had my mom's letter, now framed on my nightstand. I still had the reading. I began reaching out to professionals who wrote the articles I admired. Some never replied, but a few did. One man, an analyst named Joel Ramsey, offered to grab coffee, said he appreciated my questions and how well prepared I seemed. That coffee led to an unpaid internship at a boutique investment advisory firm. I showed up early. I stayed late. I asked better and better questions. When the firm brought in a struggling startup to consult on funding strategy, I offered to draft a proposal no one asked for. They used it. I got hired. From there, everything shifted. The firm specialized in connecting low-visibility startups with high-value angel investors. We were a bridge. I became the one reading through founders' decks at 2 a.m., flagging inconsistencies, identifying potential scams, and rewriting entire financial models from scratch. Within a year, I wasn't just a junior analyst. I was the one fund managers called when they weren't sure who to trust. By 29, I was the designated liaison for a private fund based in the Pacific Northwest. The fund was discreet. No flashy branding, no website, no LinkedIn presence. But it was backed by real capital and operated with near-surgical precision. They had one rule: we don't invest in stories, we invest in execution. I became their eyes on the ground. And then, 3 years into working with them, I was called into a quiet boardroom and asked a single question. If we built a second vehicle and gave you operational control, how would you scale it? I didn't blink. I opened my laptop and showed them the plan I'd already written 6 months earlier, just in case they ever asked. That's how I became the executive director of Rinfield Calder Ventures, a satellite fund that specialized in strategic seed capital. Calder, my mother's name. I chose it on purpose. Let the world think I was some distant niece of a wealthy estate. I didn't correct them. I just worked. My first few investments were safe bets, niche tech, logistics apps. Then came the request to look into a rebrand-heavy marketing firm that was struggling to scale. They had good visuals, weak back end, and a bloated executive team. Their proposal was over-designed and underwhelming. I was ready to say no. And then I saw the lead contact listed on the project. Melissa Heller, head of marketing, my half-sister. The same person who once told me over dinner, "Some people are just built for support roles, Emily. And that's okay." I almost laughed. She had no idea the person reviewing her funding request was the same girl she'd humiliated in front of her friends in high school because I wore secondhand shoes. No idea I'd spent years quietly building something powerful while she perfected her LinkedIn headshots. I asked for a full project deck, audited performance metrics, and digital ad ROI from the last 2 quarters. She replied through her assistant, per usual, and included the line, "Happy to provide anything you need, Miss Calder." I let the irony sit for a few days. Then I responded with a formal acceptance to attend the firm's upcoming product launch gala as a representative of Rinfield Calder Ventures, considering preliminary partnership. That gala was tonight. And that's why I walked into the ballroom with a tray of champagne, wearing catering black and no name tag. Because sometimes the best way to understand what power looks like is to see who notices when you choose to hide it. The room was louder now, humming with the kind of energy people fake when they're halfway drunk and desperate to impress. The West Core Gala had always been a show, even before Melissa took over its direction. Glossy banners, crystal centerpieces, curated photo backdrops. It all screamed effort disguised as elegance. I moved through the crowd like a shadow. No one noticed. No one questioned the woman in black holding a tray of drinks. That's the thing about uniform. People assume you belong in one. They stop looking after 2 seconds. It was exactly what I needed. Melissa stood at the center of it all, smiling her polished smile for the cameras. Her dress was deep emerald, off the shoulder, classic, but not too bold. She knew how to walk that line, always had. And flanking her were executives, influencers, tech darlings. The kinds of people she used to tell me were the real future. I circled the room until I saw him again. The older man from earlier, the one with the bourbon. He was standing near the sponsor wall, alone, his gaze tracking me as I crossed the floor. It wasn't leering or curious. It was discerning. He didn't see a server. He saw something else. I paused nearby under the pretense of adjusting glasses on my tray. "You're not actually catering," he said without looking at me. "No," I replied quietly. "I'm not." He finally met my eyes. "Which one are you?" "Calder," I said. "Rinfield Calder Ventures." He blinked once, then gave the faintest nod of recognition. "Ah, the ghost." That made me smile. "I get that a lot." He took a sip of his drink and gestured toward Melissa. "That your sister?" "Half." "She doesn't know, does she?" "No," I said. "And I'd prefer she didn't, not yet." "She's pitching me tonight," he said. "Thinks I run one of our advisory branches." "I let her." I arched an eyebrow. "You don't?" "I'm Richard Lane," he said simply. "Chairman." I felt my stomach twist, but not in fear. In calculation. I'd heard the name, of course. He was the reason Westcorp still had a capital flow at all. If he was here, he wasn't just attending. He was watching. "I've read your assessments," he added. "Clean work, minimal ego, impressive." Coming from him, that was weightier than applause. "Thank you," I said. He leaned in just slightly. "Do you want me to say something when the moment comes?" I hesitated. The part of me that remembered Melissa's smirks, her offhand comments, her refusal to acknowledge me as anything other than an inconvenience, that part wanted yes, wanted to watch her shrink, to burn. But another part of me, the one that had built all this without her knowing, whispered no. "I'll know when it's time," I said. "For now, let her think she's running the room." He gave me a short nod. "Ma'am," he said with a half smile, then walked away. It was subtle, but in a room full of people who didn't notice me at all, one man calling me ma'am with intent, it cracked something open. It wasn't long before Melissa's voice rang out over the mic. "Welcome, everyone. Tonight, we're proud to present a new direction, a new identity, and, hopefully, a new partnership with one of the most promising funds in early-stage venture capital." She glanced at the crowd, no idea I was in it. "Rinfield Calder Ventures." There it was. Eyes shifted, heads turned. Some people murmured. One or two clapped, unsure of the protocol. And I stepped forward, not far, just enough that Lane, now beside the stage, met my gaze and lifted his glass again. Melissa scanned the room, still smiling, but slightly tense now. She clearly hadn't been told who the representative was. I moved toward the edge of the gathering, put down the tray, and retrieved a slim leather folder from under the table. Inside was the decision. We would be redirecting investment, not cutting, just reallocating to another firm in the sector with more efficient operations. Melissa's team wouldn't know until morning. But that wasn't my moment. My moment came when Melissa finally locked eyes with me, and her smile froze. I nodded once, and then turned and walked away. I didn't look back. That was the rule I'd made for myself years ago. Never turn around just to see if someone's watching. You either hold the room or you don't. Let them process in your absence. I stepped outside into the sharp night air, slipping behind the building where a service door led into a quiet loading zone. The cold didn't bother me. It reminded me I was awake, grounded. I leaned against the concrete wall, breathing in deep, unfiltered silence. Inside, I could still hear the muffled pulse of music and laughter. It took her about 4 minutes to find me. "Emily?" Melissa's voice sliced through the dark, firm and shaking all at once. I didn't move, not at first. She stopped several feet away, arms crossed, as if she still needed a physical barrier to do the talking for her. "So that's it?" she asked. "You just show up and humiliate me?" I turned slowly, just enough to look her in the eye. "If that's what you felt, maybe you should ask why." She blinked, thrown off. "I had no idea you were involved with Rinfield Calder. No one told me." "You never asked." "You changed your name." "I chose my mother's name. She earned it." Melissa's jaw clenched. "You blindsided me in front of the entire room." "No," I said, my voice calm. "You blindsided yourself. You were so sure someone like me couldn't be someone who mattered." That's not fair, I laughed once, soft and bitter. Melissa, for most of my life, you made it crystal clear where I stood. You rolled your eyes when I spoke. You corrected my tone in front of others. You never invited me to your graduation, your engagement party, your baby shower. And when Mom was dying, you sent flowers. Her mouth opened, then shut again. You remember what you said to me when I got hired at that hotel downtown. Well, at least you'll get good at balancing things, like plates and expectations. Do you remember that? No, she muttered, eyes darting away. I do. Silence stretched, the kind that weighed more the longer it lingered. I didn't mean it like that, she added. You did. You just didn't think it would ever matter. Because in your version of the story, I was never the main character. Just the girl in the background, the half-sister, the one who got lucky to be around at all. She let out a sharp breath. So what now? You want an apology? You want to watch me grovel? No, I said. I don't want anything from you. That's the difference. She stared at me. Then why show up dressed like staff? Why play this game? Because I needed to see if you'd recognize me without the costume, without the wealth, without the power, just me. And you didn't. Her face flushed. That's manipulative. No, I said, stepping closer. That's reality. You mocked someone you thought was beneath you. You made assumptions. Again. The only difference this time is that the room saw it. She looked away, her shoulders rigid. I was 12 when you told Dad I should eat in the kitchen because I didn't know how to hold a fork properly, I said. I was 15 when you refused to loan me a dress for junior prom and then posted a picture of your closet saying, not charity. I have more memories like that than birthdays. Melissa's posture softened. Her arms dropped to her sides. I don't hate you, I added. I outgrew the need to. She flinched, just slightly. You wanted to be admired, I continued. And you are. You're polished, charming. But I wanted something else. I wanted to build something so strong it didn't need explaining, something that could exist with or without recognition, something Mom would be proud of. She nodded, but said nothing. I don't need you to clap for me, Melissa. I just needed to know I didn't have to prove anything to you anymore. We stood there a moment longer. Then I turned to go back in. Right before I opened the door, she asked quietly, Will they still fund us? No, I said without malice. Not through you. The door closed behind me with a gentle click. No slam, no anger. Inside, the party continued. Speeches, applause, crystal glasses clinking. People were beginning to murmur. Not about me specifically. Just whispers, cross-checks, searches. The realization was spreading. There were no fireworks, just tension, just shifted glances. Just the faint trace of understanding. And that was the real finale. Silence has weight, and when it drops into the right room, it can collapse everything. 3 days later, I was back in my corner cafe, tucked into the same window seat I always took on Thursday mornings. No blazer, no boardroom, no makeup. Just a knit sweater, dark jeans, and a notebook half filled with scribbles for the next pitch review. The barista was new. Couldn't have been older than 19. She brought me my coffee with a smile, paused, then said, Sorry, this is weird, but weren't you at that big West Course event? I blinked. I was. You looked like one of the staff, but then I heard someone say you were like the fun person, the one making the calls. I smiled softly. Something like that? She hesitated, then asked, Why not just show them who you are? I looked out the window, watching a dog pull its owner toward a pigeon's feast on the sidewalk. Then I said, Because people are always so eager to impress the loudest person in the room, I'd rather be the one they regret underestimating. The girl nodded, though I wasn't sure she fully understood. That was okay. She walked away, and I sipped my coffee slowly, letting the warmth settle. No stage, no spotlight, no need for someone to announce my name before I mattered. Some people fight to be seen. But I've learned, when you know your worth, the world finds its own way of noticing.